Hi, good evening, everybody. It's great to see you. Thanks for tuning in to Molly's Salon. This is our weekly program every Thursday where I interview innovative thinkers and creative firebrands. We're living through a critical time in American history, the COVID-19 pandemic and a vital social justice movement led by Black Lives Matter. Our guests are a variety of artists and leaders discussing new ideas, how they're coping with the coronavirus and making positive social change, as well as showing us glimmers of hope for the future, something that I think we all need right now. My guests this week are Bill Rauch, Artistic Director of the Ronald O. Perelman Center for the Performing Arts in New York, Misha Kachman, set, costume, and production designer, painter, and printmaker, and Victor Simonson, piano virtuoso, conductor, and composer. First up is Bill Rauch, and he is the artistic director of the Ronald O. Perelman Performing Arts Center at the World Trade Center. Previously, he was the 5th artistic director of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival from 2007 through 2019. And also he was the founder of the Cornerstone Theater Company, a traveling company that brought theater to rural communities across the United States before settling in Los Angeles to work with urban communities. Bill and I have known each other for many, many years when I was running Perseverance Theater in Alaska, and he was at Cornerstone because there were many relationships to different communities that we shared. And so I know Bill is going to be here in just a second. Bill's work has been seen by arena audiences many times. Most recently, there he is. Hi, Bill. With Mother Road this past January. And also, I was particularly thinking of Roe, Bill. And in this moment, in terms of Roe, what are you thinking? Bill, you're a little bit frozen to me. I'm not sure why. Is that my computer or yours? You have a very nice smile on, though. So I'm not sure if Bill, that's Bill's machine. Okay. But Bill, let's try. Oh, there you are. Hi, Bill.
Yes.
That was exciting.
You lost me, huh?
I did. But you know, you froze in a really good smile. Sometimes people freeze and, you know, there's, it's not the best image, but you froze in a really good way. So I was just saying.
You make me smile, Molly.
Well, you make me smile too, Bill. It's so great to see you. I mean, there's something about doing the salon where I have an opportunity to speak to an artist like you that I've known for so many years. That's really heartening right now. It feels good. It feels right. It's this major connection. And how do you feel in terms of, you did Roe at another kind of transformational time in American history. And here we are in this moment after Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died. And we're in the middle of confirmation hearings for Amy Coney Barrett. What are your thoughts right now about Roe?
I've been thinking so much about Roe. I've been thinking about how much I wish we could get back to sharing that story. And Lisa Loomer, the playwright, and I have been exchanging emails about what rewrites that she would do right now, because she always continued to work on the play. Of course, Nora McCorvey died during the run at Arena, and that was one of the biggest challenges because she was a live character in the play. But Lisa's always risen to the challenge, and obviously with all that is happening right now, I think the play, the substance of the play would remain exactly the same and needs to be shared as much as ever right now. But I think, you know, there would be tweaks. There would have to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it would be interesting to do it even on Zoom, because I think a lot of people would want to tune in. Lots and lots of people, even though we don't have the ability to be in the physical space of the theater, being in this kind of space and telling that story. It's such a big story to be telling right now.
You've planted an important seed just now, Molly, as you
Well,
always do when I talk to you. It's good. I love it.
well, Bill, you're in New York now, and you're at the Perelman Performing Arts Center, and you're in the development to be the final piece of the plan to revitalize the World Trade Center site. And you're going to be creating work that inspires hope. So talk to us about the promise of the Perelman.
What a beautiful question. I was really, really attracted to this opportunity to work at the Perelman because of the site, because of the location. And I mean, going back to the Dutch massacring the Lenape, the African burial grounds where enslaved Africans were buried outside of city limits, the wave after wave after wave of immigrants that entered our country through that part of New York Harbor in Lower Manhattan, the Twin Towers being built as a symbol of international peace, the Twin Towers being the target for the horrifying events of 9/11, and then the effort to rebuild. And obviously there's so many more chapters of history, but there's so much trauma on that land. And also it's such a nexus of where so much of the promise of what the United States could be, is at its best, could be, exists. And so all of that moved me deeply. And I love that you cited hope, because I do think that's central to the vision. The idea is that we'll do music and dance and chamber opera and of course theater that really is for the people of all 5 boroughs of New York City and really celebrates the fact of our diversity and connects the dots between people from all over the world and the immigrants and descendants of immigrants that live in New York. So I think with international work, with community-based work, with the work of great artists that are domestic, I think we're just going to have tremendous energy and excitement in that building, and I can't wait.
That's so great, Bill. You know, as you were talking about all the diverse voices that were going to be there and all of the layers of history that are in this area of the city, it made me think about how you've always held goals to bring to the theater those who don't have access to, or that those don't, diversity, right? Of who and what is on stage. And now it's much more in the forefront thanks to We See You White American Theater and Black Lives Matter. So we just have a few minutes left, but I would love to hear from you. What big changes do you think we will see in our field?
What a great question. What a great question. I want to ask you the same question, but you asked first. So look, when people, obviously the pandemic is a nightmare and it's very concerning for our field. But I think what is amazing about the pandemic and the very strong and clear calls for racial equity that are happening in our field at the same time is it's an opportunity to reset. And it's an opportunity to look in the mirror and to not make excuses for those of us in leadership, but instead to push ourselves and our organizations to be truly accountable to all the people in our communities. And that is, I know you and I have both worked hard in our careers to do just that, but I also know, I can always do better. And I want to always do better. And I think it's a remarkable moment in terms of the calls for equity. And I think that we're already seeing substantive changes, and there's going to be a lot more by the time theater is back full force.
Yeah, I think it's a revelatory time. I think it's, we're in the middle of a biblical time.
Mm-hmm.
When I was talking to Jim Nicola last week, he said, we're on the cusp of the birth of the 21st century. That's really where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And to move into that, we have to move through the destruction of the last century.
That's right.
And it is the destruction of racial injustices. It is it's blowing them away. Now, how far will we get? I bet we get a whole lot further than we have in the last 30 or 40 years. I feel it. I see organizations changing. I see people changing. I see not just language changing, but action being taken. And to really be an anti-racist theater or an anti-racist person, you need to actually take action. And I see people doing that. And then, fascinating enough, I see other organizations that are completely shutting their minds to it and saying, nope, that's not for me. I'm not going to change. And you know, Bill, I think they'll just be left behind in the 21st century.
I agree with you. I heartily agree.
Okay, so one last moment, because I'm desperate to hear one glimmer of hope that you are seeing in the future.
My children give me hope every day, and how both of my kids are navigating their high school and college respectively. One is online and the other is in person, and their optimism about the future gives me tremendous hope.
Beautiful, Bill. Well, thanks so much for coming on. And I'm desperate to see you in the flesh, and we will at some point. So much love to you.
Thank you so much for inviting me to chat, and much love, my inspiring dear friend.
Bye. Bye, Bill. Next up is Misha Kachman. He's a set costume and production designer, as well as a painter and a printmaker. He's worked at Arena and many, many other theaters locally and nationally. Now, he also is a teacher. He's a professor of scenic and costume design and head of the MFA in design program at the University of Maryland. And I have loved to have the opportunity to work with Misha before on The Originalist, which is about Justice Antonin Scalia, created while Scalia was still living. And because we produced it so many different times, I think we had 5 or 6 different productions of it.
At least 4. No, I think you're right,
4.
It's 5. It's 5.
Yeah, because we had Florida, we had Chicago, we had Arena, we had Oslo.
We had Arena twice.
And Arena twice, and we had New York, 59,
Yep.
East 59.
Yeah, so it's 5. Yep.
So,
and we had TV too.
And then we had television. I mean, definitely hit a nerve for audiences. And you've always been fearless in that way, Misha, in your work. I think it's why people love what you do on stage. And you design in so many different mediums. And so I just have a really simple question. Do you have a favorite? Do you have something that you go to that you feel like that's the wellspring through which everything else comes?
The wellspring must be my studio work. It must be what I do at my studio, as Joseph Brodsky said, working on myself. Because I think there is a kind of a moral obligation to work for an artist, to work on yourself, regardless of whether you are, gainfully employed selling your work to other people. So that's the short answer to this, I think. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm so curious, Misha, because we're in such a complicated time now where people are not able to meet and gather and be in the theater. And I'm really curious, in the middle of this earthquake of a time, where do you think the art form is going? How will it change?
It was, I just kind of piggybacking on you, just what you and Bill you were just talking about how it feels like the 21st century is really starting now, is that this is happening. The way the 20th century really started in 1918, right? Or at least 1914. So we might be witnessing that now, because right now I feel like for the last 20 years, we've been living through sort of the long 90s, and now they're finally over. We all see this kind of explosion of digital content during pandemic online, people doing live performance online, and I've been involved in some of those projects myself. There is a plethora of amazing recorded theater online, especially coming from Europe, because they are not bound by, kind of union rules, so on and so forth, right? However, it all feels, as a friend of mine has said, when you watch this, as if you're like a rat running through a labyrinth, in the darkness, because it tells you where to look. And I feel like when those restrictions are being lifted, we're gonna rush back to live theater for live performance, to people being in the same room and hearing, and like smelling someone's bad breath and listening to someone unwrapping the candy, because this is the essence of what the art form is. I have two competing theories of what is going to happen. One is optimistic. One is that what I hope will happen is that we will, the people who get to tell stories in terms of their background, the pool of those people will expand exponentially, and that will lead to just the new world of storytelling. But there is the opposite fear, and again, you kind of, you just referred to that, those kinds of organizations when you were talking to Bill. The opposite scenario, which is unfortunately I feel is as likely as the first one, is that after this is over, people in our world will be rushing to sort of emotional, business, and kind of artistic safety. And they will be choosing projects based on, they've been driven by fear. And American theater, both nonprofit, but particularly commercial theater, has been driven by this for a long time. When you look at what choices are made and what is produced, because they're playing not to lose, they're not playing to win. And I hope that the urge to win wins out, but I'm of two minds about it.
That's great. That's great. I love that. I love that. Yeah. It's a moment where we can go back and say we are living through history, because we are. We're living through history, and we have no idea what's going to happen. And your guess is as good as mine. But I love the extremes in terms of your thinking, Misha.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's what I've been doing for the last several months. I've been driven by this kind of idea that we have to do something. That's why I've been developing, I've been designing those COVID theaters for the Wilma and the Woolley, because I feel like the moment we can get 5 people back into the building, those 5 people, we should let them in. We should not complain that it's not 50, because we are at the point where our bottom line, what we are comparing things with, should not be, oh, this is what the capacity of fish handler used to be. Right. No, our bottom line should be 0. And everything we can get on top of 0 is gravy. We should be grateful for that and worked to make that happen.
I love that, Misha.
I know it's like, telling, as you as a leader, this is clearly not a manageable sort of producing strategy, but I'm just saying it as a maker.
Yeah, well, artists drive us with ideas, artists and scientists, right?
Yeah.
And we need to have an idea like that, because otherwise we get stuck in our own thinking that it has to be 50 or it has to be 250 or it has to be, whatever else that is. We get stuck in numbers, and being stuck in numbers means that we're not actually looking at the human sanctity of what we're doing.
Well, look at Broadway. They have a business model that doesn't allow them to function and prosper unless they have like 90% capacity. Well, maybe there is something wrong with that model.
Yeah. Yeah. So great, Misha.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So one last question for you. Tell us about something that you're in love with, that you're reading, or that you have read in the last 3 or 4 months.
Oh, I read odd things. I just read a book about a history of censorship, written by the gentleman who is the chief librarian of Harvard. It's absolutely delightful. It's funny as hell. But also, you know, I would say every 2 to 3 years, I just reread Absalom, Absalom by Faulkner.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't read a lot of fiction, and when I read fiction, I reread it at this point. Yeah, that's I like would reread the Snopes trilogy, you know, next time.
Yep. Yep. Fantastic, Misha. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. It'd be great to see you back in the rehearsal hall.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, like, and to, you know, I really looking forward to hug people. Like, you know, I miss hugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, virtual hug.
Yep.
All right, take care, Misha. Victor Simonson is a multi-talented musician with gifts spanning in areas of conducting, directing, composing, arranging, orchestration, piano, and vocals in different genres, including classical, Broadway, jazz, gospel, blues, sacred, R&B, and folk. He is also a gifted minister of music, keyboardist, and organist. And I think he will be on in just a moment, because I have an important question to ask him. And there he is. Hi, Victor.
Hi,
Great.
How are you? Good to see you.
I'm great.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, Victor. You know, I'm curious because of the kind of artist you are. You work with people individually, and you work with choruses, and you work with groups. And I'd like to know from you, what's the difference psychologically for you as an artist, working with large groups or working with a solo performer?
Yeah, it's working with individuals and recitals and coachings. There's something very special about creating a space where we're able to create an artistic freedom for ourselves and for those who are hearing us. And what I mean by that is, especially in recital formats, when I'm thinking about cabarets or recitals, there's something very transformative about that one-on-one partnership and how deep we can go and the things that we can share with each other. And I think we're able to get to some very deep places emotionally with the music and the art. Whereas with groups, my sense with groups is, especially in the pandemic, it's really, really hard to create art in this season with choirs, because to create choirs, you have to be in the same room. And so this has taught me that it is impossible to sing as a choir unless we're together and we're breathing the same air, we're hearing each other take a breath. That breath in, you know, teaching voice lessons and coachings, it's all about the breath and breathing and feeling each other breathe. And it's, you know, I was listening to Misha talk about the hugs, you know, coming in the room and hugging each other and how are you, and just those types of feelings. It's so hard to get to any space of feeling that sense of brotherhood with community in the pandemic. And before that, though, I'd say having this one mind, and anytime I work with choirs, I always teach people, it's one voice, it's one sound, it's this unity of sound that we're looking for, where we're all feeling the same thing, we're all getting the same thing from the message of the meaning of the music. And so groups are amazing, having the space and the time to do it outside of the pandemic, outside of this season, because of the virtual projects that I've done, Molly, it's been really, really challenging. It's been so difficult, and trying to create great art. And so I appreciate the individual tracks and the individual work that I've done more than the choir pieces in this season, for sure.
Well, you know, it's interesting, Victor, what you're saying about the human experience, because it's why all four of us that are talking tonight, we're drawn to the performing arts. Because the performing arts is about being human with each other, reaching out and touching each other, feeling each other, as Misha said, smelling somebody's bad breath. The whole thing of being able to reach out and physically touch someone, hearing an actor breathe on stage, watching what happens to their breathing as it starts to speed up as they're singing. You know, it's so many different associations about what it means to be a human being that we're missing right now.
Yeah, I have a great story. Over the last couple of weeks, I was invited to play for a birthday party, and I went to the party. We were essentially playing a mix of classical, jazz, gospel, a lot of different styles. And when we started playing, the woman who invited us and her daughter, who she was honoring, she just came in with tears in her eyes, and she said, "Our house hasn't been alive for 6 months. We have not had any live music, any way of feeling what you were feeling." But what was so interesting about that experience was not so much what she got from our performance, but what I got as a performer. It was so touching for me to be able to make music with my colleagues and to be able to share that moment. It was healing for me. And so as an artist and a performer, it's so, I miss so much performing, being in the pits, sharing and just singing together. It made me realize just how much I long for those moments where we can be in community. And it was transformative for me. And so I've been doing some music ministry work up in Philadelphia and playing at a service and playing pipe organ and doing some other ministry work. And that has also been a balm of healing. And so it's so important for me, and especially with 2 kids, finding those spaces where I experience healing and transformation so that I can go out and be a blessing to the world.
That's beautiful. You know, Victor, we're talking so much, I think, on the show tonight about loss. I mean, there are a lot of things that we're hearing from each person here, whether it's you or whether it's Bill or Misha or myself, that is the loss of this connection. And I'd love to hear from you as a final question. Where are you finding inspiration during these anxious times? Does it come from inside of you? Is it coming from the world as an artist? Is it coming from your family? Where are you finding the inspiration? Is it from listening to music?
There are moments of inspiration all through the day. There are some moments of devastation. There are some moments of just complete anxiety through my day, especially with 2 kids. We're homeschooling them at home. And so for me, inspiration is having that quiet time, being able to read, being able to reflect on myself and who I am and the desires that I have. And the inspiration is also not so much about what I've lost, but what I've gained. And I've gained such precious time with my wife and my children. My relationship with my wife is so much better. My relationship with my children is so much better. I'm able to pour into them in a different type of way. That when I'm not doing a run of shows, it's just the busyness of life and being able to scale back and pour into them. It has been such a joy. But I will say, and I know we were talking about this before we got on, after about 6 months of that, 7 months of that, as an artist, you begin to question, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I do these things, and when am I going to return back to being able to create these works of art that have brought healing to so many others? And so I have to really work hard to find those spaces of inspiration for myself But I'd say reading books, reading scripture, praying with my wife, praying with my kids, holding my children, just holding my son in my arms. He wants to climb on my shoulders. There are small moments that really changed my life. My students, my voice students, or just the virtual productions that I've done. And just, it's not the same not being in person, but I feel that those moments have brought healing to persons. And so that excites me and that gives me inspiration.
It's wonderful, Victor. And it's so great to have you on. Thank you so much. Your beautiful work as an artist is something that we celebrate.
Thank you so much for having me, Molly. It's an honor. You're one of my champions, one of my heroes. And so I know we've worked together for many, many years, and I've always appreciated being with you and making art with you.
We've been lucky, Victor. We've been lucky collaborators.
Yes, yes we have. Yes, we have.
Lucky in life. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Much love to you.
You as well.
And my guest next week will be Melanie Adams, who's the director of the Anacostia Community Museum, Leslie Aishi, artistic director of Perseverance Theater in Alaska, my old theater, and Alejo Vieta, costume designer. So you're going to want to tune into that. This I thought was a really, really great Molly's Salon. Deep and interesting from these three wonderful artists. Today's gift of art, Arena Stage is getting back on stage, outside. So this is very exciting news. Ife Butler is performing in a piece on Fannie Lou Hamer. And Fannie was a civil rights activist who was all about getting out the vote in the 60s. And this is a pretty fantastic piece that we're going to be doing outside because the city has brought us in as one of the pilot projects to see what will happen as companies are performing in outside venues. So we'll be at the Wharf, and Ife and her wonderful electric guitarist. Ife, for those of you who don't know her, she is a powerhouse of a performer. And this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart because this is a moment when we want everybody to be out voting. Everybody has to be out voting. And if you want to be able to see the production, it's free, but you have to get on the Arena Stage website to sign up for tickets because there's only 400 tickets for 10 days. And it starts, I think, on October 23rd, and it's completed by October 30th. Only 50 people a day that are going to see it, a performance. So thanks so much. And I think we have a little piece to show you that is about Fannie Lee. And I think here we are. Here's Ife.
I got the light of freedom, and I'm gonna let it shine. Whoa. I believe if all women hook on to each other, woo, we could become one hell of a vote majority. Freedom, and I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.